Howdy, howdy, Chris here. We're back in the garage today. Today, we're continuing our Back to the Basics series. I hope you're enjoying this series. If you are, leave me a comment down below. And if I can keep up, we'll be doing Tuesday and Thursday videos every week, and then regular full-length content on Sunday. Today, we're talking about mixing and applying sealer and mixing and applying base coat and getting that perfect blend before you clear. Thursday's episode, we'll be going through the basics of applying clear coat. As always, I'm here to help you with your repair or restoration project. So let's dig right in and get started. So Darius is going to go ahead and mix up some sealer. Now the sealer we use is a upol 2253. It mixes up 4 parts primer, 1 part activator, and 2 parts urethane reducer to create sealer. Now the only areas we'll be sealing on this Mustang is the primered areas. So we're going to spray a thin coat of sealer over those primered areas. Now the reason I'm using sealer on this particular one is because we have some areas where we sanded through the primer into some bare metal, and this particular sealer is a 2K direct to metal sealer, so that's going to take care of that issue. Now, if you're a hobbyist doing this at home, I truly recommend that you avoid sealer as much as possible unless you're painting a bumper cover. I always spray sealer over bumper covers because if you're painting without a booth, sealer can lead to more trash in your paint job. But if you want to avoid sealer, make sure that your primer is sanded properly. So you have it sanded with 600 grit sandpaper before you paint, and that you have consistent coverage in your primer. You don't want to have any breakthrough areas if you're going to eliminate sealer. You want the repair area to be all covered with primer. We went ahead and sealed this area here, basically just the edges, just some thin sealer. So the sealer we're using, 2253, and this is the activator here. So we're going to seal just this area here. Bad burn through over here, right here. And then right here, I burned through. I'm gonna have to blow a little color on that. As far as the air pressure on this gun, I'm running at 22 PSI. I've got the volume turned way down. I've got the fan pattern turned down a little bit as well. I'm just spraying the sealer over the primer areas. I'm doing a nice thin coat. I wanna make sure I get that primer edge as well, because there might be some fine scratches that we need to fill with the sealer. The sealer does a good job of filling some of those fine scratches, especially when you're spraying metallics, because metallic can lay funny in any little scratch, especially if it's over a 600 grit scratch. Even like a 400 grit scratch, you can get some metallics to lay funny in those scratches, and it'll show up in your paint job. Because this is a silver color and it's got those fine metallics, we're going to go ahead and use a color blender. Some people call it a wet bed or a clear base coat, and basically it's just binder. We're going to reduce it a little bit with some urethane reducer to thin it out, because this comes pretty thick. And it's a good idea to coat this panel before you start applying your paint. So what this color blender is going to do is create a nice wet bed for those metallics to lay into. This is going to help with the metallic orientation of your blend. It also helps to soften that edge of sealer so you don't get any weird metallic orientation in that edge. I'll pretty much always use this on silver or high metallic finishes, especially on hot days, those hot summer days. This is a lifesaver right here. Now we're going to go right into spraying our color. You don't necessarily have to wait for this to flash off. You can if you choose. I am using the Innocraft Drizzle D1. This is the low volume, low pressure paint gun. And I love that low volume, low pressure paint gun because it produces less overspray when you're spraying in a garage, and it's going to consume less air. I'm not really concerned about, but the overspray is why I like to use this gun. It sprays base very well. Now, as far as the gun settings, I've got the fan pattern wide open. I've got the fluid volume turned 2.5 turns out from close, so I close it all the way, and 2.5 turns out. And my air pressure is set up at around between 15 and 20 PSI. Now these air pressure settings and these gun settings are basically just a guideline for you. Take into consideration the conditions you're spraying in, the temperature. There's a lot of different variables, but this is a good starting point. You can adjust it from there. Now I really start by getting the primer covered, so we get coverage on that primer. On this rear bumper cover, I am putting a coat of silver over the entire bumper since I'm spraying and blending both quarter panels. So right here on the quarter panel, I'm going to cover this primer, and I'll start blending it out as we start to spray multiple coats. I turn my cap sideways here to get a different direction and less overspray over the rest of this panel. And then I'll turn it back when I do this roof rail. So when you're spraying base, you just want to have a consistent distance from the panel. You want to have a consistent speed, and you want to get it medium to wet. That's why I like to spray. That gives you a good consistency of paint. It may look blotchy at first, especially with silver, but let it flash off. Once that starts to flash off, you'll see all those metallics will even out and it won't look blotchy anymore. So what you want to do is you want to let it flash off for 15 minutes. It gives it time for those chemicals to start evaporating out of that paint. That's when it'll start to look uniform. If it doesn't, you want to blend it like this. So as I'm blending, what I'm doing is I'm moving away from the panel just a few extra inches, and I'm putting, I don't want to say dust coat because you don't want it to be rough. You still want it to be medium to wet. So when you're moving away from the panel a little bit, you're giving that paint better atomization and putting it on more even, I guess you would say. That's how you would correct modeling and get a blend out into the rest of the panel. And for those who don't know, modeling is when you're getting uneven metallic orientation, so it's going to look blotchy. That's called modeling. Here I'm just putting one final orientation coat on this bumper. We'll probably go over the quarter panels with an orientation coat, and then we'll be ready for some clear coat. So don't miss Thursday's episode when we talk about how to mix, apply, and set up your gun for clear coat. And I'll go over some different spraying techniques that are going to really help you lay down a beautiful looking clear coat finish. I appreciate each and every one of you watching. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below, and we'll see you on the next episode of Garage Noise.